That joke isn't funny anymore. Available on Amazon and everywhere. Welcome back to the Lou Perez podcast. I'm your host, Lou Perez, and today I am joined by senior writer and editor at Fire, Angel Eduardo. Angel.
Dude, what's up?
Happy New Year. And I got to say right off the bat, you look great, man.
Thank you.
You don't age.
Yeah, I'm aging for sure. I'm 39. I'm about to hit 40 soon.
When you hitting 40? When do you turn?
In March.
March what?
25th.
My son's birthday is the 26th. He's turning 5.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He is
That's
aging.
awesome.
My son, you look at my son, you're like, man, this motherfucker's getting old.
Yeah,
every year he's getting old. Well, what do you do for you got like a skin regimen or something? What do you do? What are you putting on?
No, man, just melanin. That's it. It's just melanin. I don't do anything.
I'm gonna start shooting melanin into my face.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there are some groups who will come after you for that.
Yeah.
No, I it took me a long time to figure this whole thing out. So what you're seeing is a 39-year process that is just finally feeling put together. And honestly, most of it is my wife just going, if you just, did this and this, I'm like, oh, okay. I just do whatever she says and it's working. So
there you go.
If I appear remotely put together or handsome or anything, it's largely, if not completely, due to my wife.
Nice. God bless her. She's doing the Lord's work.
Indeed.
For sure. And I have to give you a lot of respect for that. For those of you who are just listening, you won't be able to see, but behind Angel is a beautiful bookcase with a lot of books on it. So are those real, or is that a filter? Is that a backdrop? Green screen?
No, they're real. It's real.
Yeah. I have
your book is in there somewhere.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's in here somewhere. I don't know exactly.
Somewhere. Whether it's read or not, we don't know, but but it's in there somewhere. I hope it haunts you. I hope it's just like, read me.
Yeah, no. Unfortunately, from the pandemic on, my reading has just plummeted. Like I used to read on the train.
Yeah.
To and from work, and I've never been able to replace it. So I used to read like a book a week, and now it's like if I get through maybe 20 a year, that's a lot.
I was just thinking about that the other day because with the news of congestion pricing in Manhattan, and now I live in Jersey. I've been driving for the past 4 years, and then I remember there was a time living in the city where I always had a book on me. Every single time I would get on a train, I would just pop open the book and start reading, and it's like, damn, like I'm trying to remember like the last full book I read, and it's not like I'm not reading. Because I'm reading off my computer or I'm reading on my phone,
right.
but there's just something so different about actually having it in your hand.
Yeah. I tried the e-reader thing. It's fine. I like that you can bookmark stuff and highlight stuff. That's cool, but there's nothing like holding a real book. I just prefer it.
Yeah, and the books on tape too. Like, if I'm listening to a book on tape, I started one. It was the autobiography of David Milch, who was behind Deadwood, and
cool.
A number of other really incredible TV series. And it was another. I started it, but I was driving, so it was a little tough to really be taking in what what was being taught, or what the book was while I'm driving. Yeah. Well, how does this impact you, as a writer, because you do, you're senior writer and editor at Fire. Your stuff is all available on thefire.org. Is it, have you noticed any, changes in as far as like readership or, that sort of thing? Like, has reading in general been, changed? Or is it just like, oh, people aren't reading physical books anymore? They're doing all their stuff online.
I don't know. I mean, my wife is probably single-handedly keeping Strand Bookstore up because, like, some people like they'll drunk dial their exes. She'll like drunk shop for books. She just, so she's just got piles and piles of books. She reads way more and way faster than me. And she's got all these eclectic tastes. So if if she's any indication at all of what book readers are like, I think we're fine. It's just a matter of people finding their own way. I mean, you dated the shit out of yourself, by the way, by saying books on tape.
I said books on tape. Oh my God. I didn't even say audiobooks.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So
Oof.
yeah, like audiobooks, I'm not that into them. It has to be a very specific kind of nonfiction for me to actually do it. 'Cause fiction, I feel like, no, I need to be able to read it at my own pace, reread stuff, go back. And it doesn't work as well. And I don't want to be doing something else while I'm listening to that. But if it's nonfiction, it could be a podcast or something. It feels the same way. So that works. But I don't know. I think books are making a comeback. I think people really like reading stuff that's real and in their hands. I think people are kind of tired of ebooks. There are some people who swear by it, but most people I know, they like to get the real book. They like to get it signed, and they like to read the real book, stuff like that. That's what I like to do. And there's just tons. It's just, I think the main challenge, the main issue is how many things are vying for people's attention. There's just Substack after Substack and article after article. And then you've got to, just to keep up with stuff, you've got to spend your entire day just reading all this stuff in all these different places. And it's exhausting. I think just reading a book for the sake of reading a book, and usually if it's fiction, it's just fun. And if it's, really well put together nonfiction, then it's more enriching. I think it has a better effect than 20 articles versus a chapter of a really solid nonfiction book. It's just different. Yeah. So I think people are probably gravitating more that way because they're realizing they can't keep up with that rat race anymore.
Yeah, and I think my wife is also doing her part on keeping bookstores afloat. She's a part of a book club by us, which I've never attended because I'm not allowed to attend. But it's been a cool social thing for her. An opportunity for her to get together with her friends. But they are reading books. In addition to making dinner and having drinks and stuff and unwinding. Like they are.
That's cool.
Yeah, they are actually reading books. And I have my sister-in-law is pregnant. She's due next year, and she keeps posting all these books that she's reading. Like she's reading for two. It seems like she's just like devouring these books. And I'm jealous that they're able to do that. The other day I picked up. This is a collection that I've read already. It's called the collection's called Dangerous Laughter by Steven Millhauser, and it's a collection of short stories. Millhauser, people might know him. I think he wrote the novel The Prestige that the movie was based on.
Cool.
And in this collection, there's one of my favorite short stories. It's called The Disappearance of Elaine Coleman. And if anybody's having like an existential threat and a question of like, what are they doing in life? Are they leaving anything behind? Will they be remembered? Maybe don't read this book. Maybe don't read this story. But it's really great. It's a disappearance of this woman, and everybody is like, and everyone is wondering how she just disappeared, and also who she was, and if they remembered her, if the memories they have of her are legit. And she just seems like someone that was kind of here and not and gone forever. So it's a pretty deep story. And I've been trying to, it's a short story. It's like 20 pages, and I picked it up and I wasn't able to finish it all in one sitting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I need to, I need to get back to that. So at some point in the middle of this, of our discussion, I'll just start reading the,
yeah, go. I know what you mean. I feel also, if I try to sit on the couch and just read, I'll just find myself idly pausing and then checking my phone. And I'm like, oh man, that's a bad habit.
If the phone is anywhere nearby, if you can reach the phone, then you're in trouble. It's like I've in the times where I've been successful of actually deep work or just deep uninterrupted activity, the phone needs to be like away. But then when it's away now, God, who knows all the things I'm missing? There's
exactly.
all these emergencies. Angel, there's an earthquake happening halfway around the world that I need to know about.
Right.
I can help.
Right. Because you can fly over and stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I hear you. It's we're training ourselves to be these little squirrels, these ADD squirrels. And it's not good for us. Sarah Haider had a great piece from a while ago that I keep sharing. There's something to the effect of, why I stopped reading the news and why you should stop reading the news. And she's basically making the case of I was trying to be a responsible person. I was trying to be informed. I was trying to stay on top of everything. And then you realize that 99% of the feed you're getting is useless crap that's not going to matter in 24 hours or 2 days, So luckily I never got into that news junkie kind of thing. I just had the instinct of if I don't hear about it in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, it didn't matter. So I'm not going to worry. And if it does matter, I will hear about it because everyone's going to be talking about it. I'll find out at some point. But we've been training ourselves to kind of just the constant feeding. And we can't sit down and just enjoy a book or a movie. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a movie theater and someone pulls their phone out in the middle of the movie.
Dude.
I'm like, why are you here? I can see this. I remember this woman 2 rows in front of me pulling out her phone and checking Facebook in the middle of Blade Runner 2049. And I'm like, why are you here?
Well, and for those of you who haven't seen that Blade Runner, it is absolutely gorgeous. I saw it. I watched it on my TV in my living room, and I was blown away. So the idea of watching that on a real screen.
It's beautiful. I'm throwing popcorn at this chick because she's fucking up my experience. I see the little blue light in my face while I'm trying to watch this thing. And it's why are you here? Yeah. But it's almost not even her fault. She's just trained to do that. And I'm just as guilty. I'll pull my phone out at, in a lull at a red light. I feel the urge. I keep doing that. That's something I got to fight,
Yeah. Yeah. I once had this, I was at a dance show with my wife, and it was great. It was a great dance show, an amazing company. And I was unable to enjoy it because I think 2 rows in front of me was a guy on his phone, and that blue light, the glare was there. And I did, kind of like an aggro thing where I took my playbill, and just threw it at the guy at his phone. And he kind of turned around, and then he put his thing away. I forget if he brought it out again at some point, but it was he may have left to go do something. But it was just so so rude, so disrespectful. And it's funny too because when you are in an audience, you are part of a collective, right? As much as you want that experience just for yourself, you can't have that experience for yourself, even if all things are going well, because you need the audience there. But to fuck it up like that for other people is just
But again, I'm just as guilty. I feel the same urge. So even though it's annoying, I understand the psychosis. A couple of years ago, I'm pretty sure it was for New Year's or for 4th of July. But it was a photograph of the fireworks, but they could only be seen through everyone's phone screens that were in front of the camera. So it's a crowd of people all looking at the fireworks, but they're all filming the fireworks. Right. And the camera of the photograph that you're seeing didn't see real fireworks. It's only seeing fireworks through other people's screens. And I just remember thinking this is 2024 or whatever in a nutshell. Yeah. It's we're all at the thing, but we're so busy recording the thing that we're not at the thing. And I don't.
When we, so I'm in New Jersey, and for weeks we were having the drone sightings. We're seeing a ton of them. My wife and I, and there was all this. Who are they? What are they? Who are they? Who's really behind them? And I was of the mind that if they were aliens, then it would be a good thing, because then we know that they're just like us. Instead of enjoying the show, they're recording them, the show on their version of the iPhone, as they pass over.
It's a very human thing, man.
Well, talking about the, kind of the rat race, or, jumping around all these different platforms. I mean, one of the things is that you're also dealing with, on all these platforms is the algorithm, right? So the algorithm is like, oh, this is what you're into, so I'm going to keep feeding you this. And something's happened recently that I've noticed where, depending on my like Instagram versus X, were very different algorithms. So in the stuff that they would, feed me, like, so for a while on X, I would be seeing all of these, like, street fights and really just, just terrible, terrible bits of humanity that happen on the street,
Yeah.
And, so they would keep, kind of like feeding me that in the For You. And now recently, like, I've been checking out over on Instagram. A lot of that stuff is now being fed to me as well. And I'm like, does Instagram know what I'm watching on X, or is there something that I've been liking or following on Instagram that now they're sending me the same shit? So now I need to, like, I don't know, find a way to, cleanse the palate. It's like, there's only so many times, I could watch, like, drunk guy gets knocked out by bouncer, before I'm the one with the problem,
Yeah. No, my social media feeds are really weird compared to other people's, I guess, because I haven't seen that, like, the transition from a pre-Musk Twitter to current Musk Twitter has been fairly the same, pretty much the same, with the exception of bots. Like, I got a ton of bots, hot Asian women liking my posts and messaging me randomly, which I'm pretty sure is out of the ordinary.
Right.
But besides that, I haven't seen any of the, like, people getting murdered or anything crazy like that. I haven't gotten any of that stuff in my feed. And for a while, I didn't even realize that I was in the For You feed as opposed to the following feed. I didn't even realize, because it seemed normal. Mm-hmm. And I guess part of the reason is that whatever I'm feeding into the algorithm, like, I don't want to see that stuff. Whenever people share that stuff, I don't click it. And, the thing is just trying to keep your attention. So it's about what you care about and what you want to pay attention to. So I try to be mindful of that, so that, these platforms aren't the cesspool for me that they are for so many people. And we have more control over it than we think we do. It still matters. But
I'm on Substack, and so I've been releasing the podcast early on Substack and building it out. So if you're listening to this and you don't follow me on Substack, please do. And I've been surprised on Substack by the amount of people who hate Jews, who are openly Jew haters, and then so open that they decide to comment on everything that I put out, like, as if I'm like a rabbi or something, and they're coming at me. And it's to a certain degree, it's I guess troubling. It's like, oh wow, I didn't know this is a real thing. But to I think the credit of Substack, I haven't seen any of those people, like, get their accounts taken away or anything like that. I just block, and that seems to have been it seems to be working out for me.
The Jew hatred is pretty insane. I mean, hatred in general is pretty insane. Like, you'll find a little cohort of people who are just super, super into hating this very specific particular group of people. It's kind of wild. Every once in a while, I'll find myself, I spin a tiny bit out of my usual orbit with something, and man, it's just crazy. But I just try not to respond to that stuff or block it or mute it or whatever. If someone's incessant, I'll mute. I've never blocked anybody that I can remember. I don't think so. But I'll just mute people. There are some, after a while, after a certain level of followers, you start getting your own little, it's like they send you your little like starter pack of haters and stuff. So I have some people that are just, everything I post, there will be some snarky comment. Every once in a while I'll respond, but usually I'm just like, okay, whatever.
And a lot of people might not know this, but there was a time where I worked at Fire with Angel, and I was the communications manager. So it's like, the social media platforms and stuff. And the thing about Fire, not only being like, the free speech organization, like it's the free speech org. they are incredibly principled. Everybody who works there is really thoughtful and, concerned about, what they're putting out, the amount of thought that goes into everything. Totally professional. So the haters that Fire gets, as an organization, you can't respond to the haters the way you would if you were an asshole comedian like myself, right? So Fire ends up being kind of like a punching bag, for a lot of these, for a lot of these tools. And, to Angel's credit, because Angel, works at Fire, but also is his own public figure. You also do this thing where you are principled in that. I remember at the time I was asking you, there was like one guy in particular, we don't have to bring his name up. I was like, why'd you block this guy? And you're like, no, it's not my thing. And without naming who this guy is, you're like, yeah, I kind of looked into him and tried to talk to him, and he doesn't really have much going on in life outside of whatever hate he's bringing to you or the, or the organization. And when you think about that, I mean, it's, for one, it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And it's like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's I'm always reminded of this great quote from James Baldwin where he says, something to the effect of, I suspect that one of the reasons why people cling to their hatred so stubbornly is because they're afraid that once the hate is gone, they'll have to deal with pain. And that's just so true to me. And so anytime I get venom from people, anytime that I get just crazy amounts of like hatred or just insult or whatever, the crazier and hotter and more hostile it is, the more it reminds me of that quote. And so I just go, man, like, I don't know what's going on with you, because like, this is obviously not warranted. You know what I mean? So whatever's going on with you, man, I'm sorry. And it just kind of dissipates it for me. I'm not worried about it because I realize it's not really about me. And also, it's just, I don't want to contribute to the thing that I'm saying and seeing is a problem. So no matter what people come at me with, I'm going to respond in the way that I think is right, no matter what, which is to say, well, and it doesn't mean I'm just going to be a doormat, which is something people assume. But I'm just not going to reciprocate that kind of hostility, because the whole point is this is bad. So if I'm doing it back to you, you're a comedian, it's different. Your whole thing is the jabs and stuff, and I appreciate that stuff. But my mission and goal is improving discourse. And so, with the exception of comedians who kind of get special dispensation to be fools and things like that, fool with an E at the end. I try to encourage a little bit of a more peaceable discourse, and it also just diffuses people, right? If you don't meet them at the height and pitch that they're at, they kind of start feeling weird about it, unless they're really unhinged, in which case, well, the reciprocation wouldn't work at all, for sure, right? So I just see no upside to doing it that way.
With the news, I guess was it coming out today or it was yesterday about Facebook kind of going back, I think closer to the way it used to be as far as getting rid of a lot of its censorship tendencies and fact checking and stuff like that. I welcome it. I remember Facebook being like that. I would say Facebook was the best social media platform in my lifetime. And the big reason, and the reason why, at least for me, it was like, as a comedian, as producing videos and that sort of thing, you would be able to post a video and then have all of this discussion happen in the comments, and people could, share the video and all that. Right. And for a while, it's probably going, let's see, like 10 years ago, you had this real opportunity to really to blow up and to get like a lot of followers and all that. And then, it seemed like Facebook's a thing like I check every now and then, just to see what's going on. But there's still like a lot of life that happens on Facebook, or a lot of, it seems like it tend to be, older people. But it's one of those things where it's sort of like, I don't know how it's kind of survived this long by being a place where, at least everyone that I know is like, yeah, it kind of sucks over there now.
Yeah. I think it's just the demographic shifted. So now everyone's grandma's on Facebook and they love it.
Right.
And that's probably most of it. I mean, the reason I keep Facebook is just to have a way to stay in touch with a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just, okay, I know I have that avenue if I need it, but I don't check it very often. I don't post on it very often, which is crazy because I felt very similarly to you. That was the main platform, and I loved it because it's pictures, it's video, it's text.
Right.
You know, and it seemed weird that Instagram pops up and it's like just the pictures aspect, and Twitter pops up and it's just the text aspect, and it's truncated. And I'm like, well, that just, you know, that doesn't seem as good, but it turned into its own thing and it kind of worked out. But yeah, I mean, I think Facebook's just now too unwieldy, I guess, and it's just easier to. You know, being a writer, I guess on Twitter, I just thought, okay, it's cool because it's very concise, and you have to figure out how to be pithy, and it just seems to work faster and easier. But yeah, if you get into it with somebody and the multiple threads and then commenting on comments,
and the quote tweeting and like I do that all the time, rather, which I guess is annoying if you follow. You're like, oh, I got to follow this back. Like how many different steps, you know, for the
right? Yeah, it's a lot. So it's hard to track conversations, whereas on Facebook, it was like a thread, like just underneath, it's just going back and forth. And I used to have long conversations with people. I'd be writing essay responses to people, and they'd write essay responses back. Like I remember, you know, talking to like a 9/11 truther guy who's a friend of mine, and he was a truther guy back then. And we'd just be going back and forth about like the melting point of steel and all this crazy shit.
Right.
And it was like, I put a lot of time and energy into that, and it's just crazy that, you know, that's just not how we do it anymore.
Right.
It's wild.
Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do as far as the reach goes and who's able to see your stuff, because I think one of the most annoying things, and one of the things my wife complains about on Instagram, because she has like kind of like an online business, and the only way to get reach on Instagram is to pay for it. And it's a similar thing with Facebook. So, you have people who, you amass like 100,000 followers and nobody's seeing your stuff. And it's, I've always, and, granted, I'm not a Silicon Valley person. I don't know anything about tech, but just as a user and a creator on the on the platform, I'm like, I think it would just be better if you just let people see the stuff they want to see. Like, if they're following me and I post something new, even if it's the 20th thing on their timeline, just let it happen.
Yeah, I think it's just it starts to turn into, how can we monetize this? Like the first wave is, how can we get people interested in this? And that's usually the funnest part, because you're trying to create all these things that are interesting and fun for people, and they respond to it and they produce all this stuff and everybody's having a good time. But then you start going, all right, now we need to make money off of this. And you start pummeling them with ads, and you start throttling people's reach, and then offering them, incentives. Like if you pay for it, you can get this much exposure. If you pay for the next tier, you get that much exposure. And, basically, like, once bands figure out how to use the platform, that's the death knell. Once you start getting local bands and they've figured it out and you're seeing their stuff all the time, that's you're on your way out. That's almost the end, because then the platform is going to start charging them for stuff, and it's just going to turn into this thing of, we're not going to show you stuff unless they pay for it, because that's a great way for us to make money. And it ruins the whole spiel, once the corporate people figure out how to make money off of the thing, it always gets ruined.
Did you, have you done Bluesky? Have you, you on that?
Yeah, I have it. I'm on it. I wanted to just jump into the new platform and get my first name, last name. Mm-hmm. I wish that I had done that for Twitter, but I don't use it too much. I'll post stuff on it, but there doesn't seem to be a ton of engagement. Unless you're Jesse Singal, there's not a lot going on there.
I mean, with Jesse, it's basically it seems like they're rallying a lynching. Dude, it's really.
I did not think it was possible, but Jesse Singal managed to find a social media platform that is worse for his mental health than Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there are a lot of people who don't, who might just be familiar with Jesse, from his writings, reporting, his podcast, Blocked and Reported with Katie Herzog, which is great.
Great podcast.
Jesse's a friend of mine, and I mean, one of the nicest guys, down to earth, funny.
Yeah.
No, not a bone in his body of hate or any of the phobias that he gets accused of.
No, that's crazy.
And it's real. And there's been a number of times over the years when I've reached out to him and just said, I don't know how you're handling this. Like,
it's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. I don't know how he does it. I mean, I've met him a couple of times. He's a lovely guy. I've listened to Blocked and Reported for years. I love his writing and reporting. I think he's really, really fair and really goes out of his way to be compassionate, actually. One of the things I really appreciate about him. So the caricature of him is just even more weird because it's so completely opposite to who he actually is. But he stepped on the wrong hornet's nests, and and he's got that compulsion that we all have, but he's got that compulsion of like, someone's wrong on the internet, I have to, so he's definitely got a little bit of that, which doesn't do him any favors in terms of, it'll ruin his day, it'll ruin his week. It just sucks.
Well, it's also, then he also finds himself, over the years, trying to persuade people into not believing the worst lies about him,
right.
And at that point, I mean, you're not communicating with forget about good faith. I mean, you're kind of communicating in a way with evil. You might not, I don't know if you probably wouldn't want to go that far, but there are people who's like, he's asked for receipts so many times about like, wait, you're saying this thing about me. Where did I say that? And instead of providing those receipts, they, bring up some other lie. It's
it's a whole other skill, recognizing when a particular conversation is not worth having and then just abandoning it.
Yeah.
But it's a necessary skill, especially for someone like him. He has to say, okay, well, look, I asked you for receipts. Obviously you didn't provide them. I don't think they exist, obviously. So that's all I can say here, and just leave it at that. But I also understand why that's so unnerving. I mean, it would drive me crazy if people were out there saying, not just false, but insanely false and hateful and hurtful things about me. I'm sure that would bug me a lot. I mean, people do that a little bit with me, but I don't get it anywhere near at the level he does. So I understand it, but ultimately you have to figure out some way to not care.
Yeah.
And realize, well, I know the truth, and anybody who actually cares about the truth will see it. And if something gets big enough, I will respond to it in some even-handed way and then leave it at that. You have to just be able to leave it, because it's you kind of, it's that saying about getting into the mud with pigs. The pigs like it. So
right.
So.
And if you could find a way, and I think even more important, if you can find a way to monetize it, which I think thankfully Jesse has done. I think he and Katie are doing very well with their podcast. I think I was one of the initial backers, because I remember I was on Twitter, and I don't know if the two of them had, I'm sure they were definitely familiar with each other. I don't know if they'd ever met or done something together before, but I said something like, if you guys do a podcast, I'm going to send you $50. And
cool.
And I sent them $50.
Nice.
So, I should have asked. That $50 should have been as a way to get equity in that podcast. I messed up big time. But it happened. It happened, ladies and gentlemen. So with Fire, what are some of the things that have been on your mind? In the free speech zone. In the free speech zone, what have you been writing about? What are you excited about? What are you worried about?
I don't know. It's funny because the results of the election, I realized, I had a preferred outcome, sure, but I also kind of had in the back of my mind that either way, it's just going to be annoying. for me. Like either way, it's just about which camp I'm going to be dealing with more, I think. And I think the funny thing for me is all these people thinking, aha, victory for free speech. Everything is great now. We've killed the censors. And I'm like, have you looked at Twitter? Like, these self-proclaimed free speech activists are just as censorial. They're just as, they love their cancel culture. As we saw, after the attempted assassination on Trump, we saw that Home Depot lady, like getting doxxed and ended
what was
up.
The Home Depot lady? Oh, yeah.
So after the assassination attempt on Trump, this lady, I think from upstate New York, she posted on her Facebook like something to the effect of like, the shooter should aim better next time or something like that. Right. Libs of TikTok figured out who this person was, and someone confronted this woman at her job. She was a clerk at Home Depot, and then posted the video of it online, and it just turned into this whole thing. And I'm like, oh, I thought you guys were against this whole thing. But, they found out who this person was. They doxed her. They tagged her employer, and they ended up, Home Depot releasing a statement saying, oh, her views do not reflect ours, blah, blah, blah. I'm pretty sure she was fired, if memory serves. And I'm like, how is this different from the thing you've been railing against for years? Like, how is this different? They're like, oh, it's totally different. How? And yeah, I mean, Elon Musk claiming to be a free speech advocate. I've been putting a thread together now of just like exhibit A, exhibit B. I'm up to E of just, him being completely not for free speech. I mean, he throttles, at the very least, he throttles anybody who uses the word cisgender. Helen Pluckrose had a great thread about that.
Yeah, I remember that. And then I said I call my my cisgender brothers my sisters, CISTERS, which I think is a great joke, and it should definitely have a lot more.
That's good.
A lot more views.
Yeah, well, it could get flagged for harmful or hateful content because Elon considers it a slur, and so that's it. And look, he can run Twitter however he wants. It's his house party. He can invite whoever he wants and kick out whoever he wants and do whatever he wants there. But you can't do that and also claim to be a free speech absolutist and not hear it from people like me. So that's what's happening. But it's just silly. And the podcast bro administration that we're about to get, like the podcast bro administration, like there's going to be no shortage of stuff to talk about and complain about and criticize them for. So I don't think the work is done at all. That's really what I'm thinking and anticipating in the next few weeks and months and years.
Yeah. With the, one of the, I've really enjoyed X. I know that we live in, weird times where, things are happening like, I think there's there are some things that happen that are political in nature where I have to kind of take a step back and say, I'm not good at politics. Like I've never won an election. I've never built a coalition. I've never enacted real change in the world. So I don't necessarily know, like if you follow me, you might not be in the best position to negotiate or to leverage, to get what you want eventually. So I see a lot of that with the stuff that like Trump and Elon are doing.
Right.
I mean, the last election that I won, I was in high school and I was a senior class president.
Get out of
here. Yeah. And I did it only so I could beat my ex-girlfriend. So I did it with
defeat. You mean defeat?
Yeah. Defeat. Excuse me, not beat. But it's not. Yeah, it's not like there was a workaround. Like, oh yeah, if you're the president, you can hit your girlfriend.
Hey man, I don't know.
Yeah, but who knows?
Schools are crazy these days.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was back in 1999 or whatever. But yeah, So I mean, that's all that I know about campaigns and stuff.
Sure.
But the one thing that bummed me out, especially like with the advent of Bluesky, even though it's been here for a while, where the mass exodus from X over to Bluesky by a lot of people, either on the left or people who were just very anti-Elon, very anti-Trump, is I'm like, damn, I want you all to stay. Like, I really want you all to stay on X because you make it so much fun. If I disagree with you, like, it's a lot more fun for me. And it's like, you know, and it's like, damn, you're kind of like taking that away. So, you know, part of me, I'm kind of happy to hear about how badly things are going on Bluesky for a lot of people. Like, there are people who are putting just very anodyne posts up there that are getting dinged and flagged and, you know, shut down and all that. So it's turning into, it seems like a place where, you know, the people who wanted a level of censorship on X are getting a level that they did not want, you know?
Right.
So I'm hoping more people will come back over. You know, even if it's, you know, selfish and, you know,
well,
for me, just wanting a good time.
I mean, that's the thing though, is I agree with you in the sense that I think it's bad for our culture and our discourse that we're siloing so much. You know, like, all right, I'm just going to go over there where I already agree with everybody, and the censorship is exactly my flavor. And you guys are going to stay over here where you like it better, and we're never going to talk to each other. And you know, one of the consequences of that is that the boogeyman version of the other side is just going to get more and more gruesome and more frightening and more intractable to people. Like, it's just going to become more and more difficult for us to have those disagreements in any way that's remotely productive, let alone fun, right? Like, we should be leaning more into arguing with one another in a constructive way, some way that actually gets somewhere, instead of just pot shots and stuff like that. I mean, if we don't even exist in the same spaces anymore, that's just going to get worse and worse and worse, you know? So.
And over the past, you know, these past 2 weeks, there's been a pretty big online, not only online debate, but it's you know, spread from that in regards to, you know, visas, H-1B visas, which is something I had no idea about. I didn't know anything about, you know, these visas. I didn't know what countries, you know, they were, you know, issued to predominantly or anything like that. And people have, you know, some critics have put it like, oh, look, you know, the right, they're infighting. There's like a civil war now between the right. And, you know, if you're actually following the discourse, it's like, no, there are factions in the right who disagree with one another over this, and they're having it out openly in, you know, on this platform, and it's, you know, being discussed, you know, more openly. And like, that's great. Here's something I didn't know about. Now I know a little bit more about it. Smarter people than I are having this discussion. And, you know, if change comes down the road in regards to this, you know, people won't be able to, you know, deny that the conversation happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's always good for engagement to happen. I guess it's about the nature of that engagement. Like, I think Elon posted something to the effect of like, I will go to war on this in a way that you can't even imagine, or something like that, right? It's just like, okay, dude.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, you know, like, that's the tenor of things usually. And that's, you know, so I understand the impression people get of others infighting. And honestly, I think there is probably infighting. I don't imagine the honeymoon period between Trump and Elon is going to last very long. You know, you can't have two alphas in the same room. It's just, they're like, or, you know, two beta fish. You can't have two beta fish in the bowl. Like, it's just not going to happen. So I'd be surprised if it's a long and productive relationship, but we'll see. Either way, though, I do agree with you. What we want is engagement, but we don't just want engagement. We want productive engagement. We want people to know how to communicate about this stuff in a way that makes sense and that actually gets us somewhere. If it's just people squabbling and, you know, just applause line versus applause line and pot shot versus pot shot, you know, that's engagement in name only, right? It doesn't get us anywhere. And the point of communicating is to get us somewhere. So you're using it the right way in terms of, oh, I wasn't even aware of this, so let me hear what smart people are talking about it, and let me see if I can make up my mind or figure out, you know, just have a better idea of what's happening. That's great. What I fear is that most people are just kind of picking their tribe and then just, you know, give me my lines. What are my lines? Okay. Right. I've got my lines, and I'm just going to parrot them. And it's really just a video game for people. The problem is that it's not really a video game. It's actually very consequential. These things matter.
Yeah.
And if we're going to be this 21st century society that is engaged in discourse, and it's a democracy, so we all have a say, we should be informed. We should be capable of engaging with ideas that are uncomfortable for us and difficult for us to understand, and going back and forth and having the humility to say, I have no idea, the way you just did. Like, oh, I didn't know anything about this, so let me find out more, right? Like,
Yeah.
that's we need those things in order to effectively be what we claim we are.
Yeah.
Right.
And a recent, development in New York, at least in Manhattan, is with the, congestion pricing.
Yeah.
And do you have a car in Manhattan?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How often or are you using it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I live
other than moving it to alternate side parking.
Yeah.
Which I had to do in Brooklyn all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pain. It's not that bad where I'm at. I only have to do it once a week, but yeah, it's, you need the car if you're going to do anything outside of Manhattan and Queens. Like, you need a car. You have to drive. Yeah. It's a pain in the ass to get to Brooklyn. It's a pain in the ass to get to Long Island. It's a pain in the ass to get to New Jersey. And I go to those places all the time. So you need a car. The congestion pricing thing is kind of annoying. I haven't had to deal with it yet. So I don't know how it's really going to affect me. And I don't necessarily drive downtown very often. So it really just depends. But I don't know. I honestly don't know enough about the mechanics of it. On its face, it sounds like it sucks, right? It sounds like it's going to hurt the wrong people and it's going to inconvenience the wrong people. But I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I don't think it was put on the ballot of the recent election. So it seemed like I remember a friend of mine talking about how, it was eventually became implemented, where it was a really weaselly thing. Like, it was like New Yorkers didn't necessarily have, like, is it a yes or a no? Right. Being able to vote on that. And I could be, wrong. Anyone out there, please correct me. But yeah, like, what I think that's like another example of, something that's happening, where I'm glad that the discussion of it is happening on X, online, because people were pointing out some good things. There's this guy, actual justice warrior, Sean Fitzgerald, who I follow. He's a lawyer, and he has a lot of great takes on crime, and he's been, I don't know if he's made a video about this yet, but if he does, I think it'll be worthwhile to see. And one of the things that he pointed out is, if the goal is to reduce congestion, right, then you have to look at policies that have been enacted in the city over the years, where there are times where they have moved like multiple lanes of traffic and cut them down into one. So if your idea is to reduce congestion, well, you don't take 4 lanes and make it 1 lane. It's just how it is. And now a big part of the congestion pricing is the idea that it's going to help fund the MTA, right? So if funding is also a goal, well, if fewer people are going to be now driving into Manhattan, well, then you're not going to be collecting tolls from those people, So it's one of these things where, okay, where are you gaining? Right. Where are you losing? How are the behaviors of people going to change? Like me, I'm the more and more I've been going into the city, whether it's for gigs, for social events that you and I the kinds that we go to, talks, lectures, and stuff like that. So I'm kind of fucked in a way. It's like, what happens? Like, you were talking about the mechanics. Like, okay, what happens if I screw up? If I go down and I hit 60th and I'm at 58th and I'm like, oh man, fuck, I just fucked up. Now I got to go around. And what happens if I have to come down again? Am I getting charged like twice for that? I don't know.
I have no idea. Yeah, I have no clue. Idea. I don't. Yeah, I mean, I haven't. To be honest, I think they just enacted it yesterday or the day before. Yeah. So I haven't even looked into how it works. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just so much of our trouble comes from the fact that our problems require long-term solutions, and the solutions require time to actually become implemented and see how they work, right? There's no other way. It's like, let's just try this and see what happens, but we have to give it a long runway. But we're all short-term thinkers, and our politicians and all these people they're working on a short term because they've got to run on results. Right. So I need results. So I have to just at least make it look on paper like I did something, or like something happened, so that I can run on that and say, look, I'm a doer. Right. And we all think that way. So it's just our approach and our systems they're not using compatible timelines or algorithms, so to speak. You know what I mean? So it's a mess. I have no idea what calculations were necessary or were done to figure out that this is the best way to do it. And I think I remember that there was a vote on this years ago, and they basically ended up saying, okay, we won't do it now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the election resulted in, was like, okay, fine. You guys don't want it. We won't do it now. We're going to do it. We'll wait a while. Right.
We're going to do it the day before the 10th anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo murder.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do.
Right. Yeah. So I vaguely remember that being a thing. I might be wrong, but either way, it's just, this stuff is messy and difficult and complicated. And yeah, I think it's good for people to try to inform themselves and have discussions about this stuff. But again, the caveat always has to be, there are productive and unproductive ways to do that engagement. Right. I've seen plenty of people sharing, fake videos or fake stats and things like that. And it's like, that's not going to help, but it helps your side for 10 seconds. It scores you points against the other side for 10 seconds. And who knows, people might read that and walk away, and that's the last thing they heard of it. And then they're just misinformed. And it's just, that happens too. So it's, there's a lot of personal responsibility that needs to go into this thing. If we want to use these advanced tools, right? It's like when you're a teenager, you want to have a license, you want to get a car, right? There's responsibilities that come along with that. Like, all right, you can have a car, you can get your car, you got to know how to drive, you have to obey the rules of the road, you have to be responsible with this very, difficult and dangerous technology that you're using. You have to be responsible. Same thing, right? If you get it's the same thing with social media and our discourse in general. Like, we have to be responsible with the freedoms we have, so that we don't fuck ourselves, because it's really about fucking ourselves. Let's not do that by being cavalier with this stuff. We have to recognize how big of a deal it is and how important it is and how much is on our plate in terms of actually using these things productively. So,
and I think too, it's also not dismissing people's legitimate concerns. I've been caught. Dude, when I was recording my book on tape, my audio book, when I was recording that, I was doing sessions with my friend Scott Hampton. He's a composer, and we were recording anytime we were able to get some stage studio time. And the one studio, we recorded a little bit at his house in Washington Heights, and then it wasn't working out, so we found a studio in Brooklyn. And I made the mistake of driving from New Jersey to Brooklyn during rush hour on a Friday night.
Oh my God.
And it took me, just to get there, was close to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Then I had to find parking, which was another half hour. And I got into the studio, and I was like, maybe I could do like 1 or 2 chapters. And I was so angry at the world. I wanted to burn the studio down, burn the world down. Fuck it. I wanted to burn the whole world down. So I understand what it's like to drive, and try to commute with a car in the city, and how much it sucks. Right. So, perhaps I will be willing, I'd be willing to pay an extra $9 or whatever it is on the days that I have to come to the city. But then again, I'm not coming into the city 5 days a week, 6 days a week, so maybe that works out for me. And that's a trade-off. Just because it's a trade-off that I'm willing to make, I can't then turn around and call people babies for not wanting to make that same trade-off if they're not in a position to do it. It's like I used to love riding the subway. I can understand why there are a lot of people who are really fucking scared of the subway now. I totally get that,
For sure.
And it's not just, it's what the headlines are putting out there. It's fucking weird in this year or 2024, going to 2025, the stuff that's been happening, I can understand why people are scared. And to say things like, oh, the chances of you being blah, blah, blah is, so low. I liken it to, I know a woman who, I know a firefighter who died on 9/11. He was murdered, he was in one of the towers. And the idea of going to his widow and saying, well, the chances of him dying in a terrorist attack are so small. Like, it fucking happened,
Yeah, right. No, of course, the chances are small, and that's important to know, but it still could be you. You know what I mean? Like that's something that you should pay attention to. And we're bad with risk management. We're bad with assessing that sort of thing. People are really scared of flying on airplanes, but every time they get in a car, they're in way more danger, statistically speaking. Mm-hmm. So those are important things to know, and it is true, and it should temper how we respond to this stuff, right? But it's still, one is too many, right? One person getting shoved on the subway into the tracks, like that's too many. That's crazy. Yeah. So we have to figure that stuff out, and the fact that it happens as much as it does. I do know that also you're going to hear about every single one of them because it's crazy and it's newsworthy, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's a legitimate concern to have, right? And dismissing them doesn't fix it, and it doesn't change people's minds. It just makes you feel like no one's listening to you. And you feel like, all right, there's a bunch of assholes here who don't recognize the problem. And what's going to happen there? I'm going to vote differently now. I'm not going to vote for you people. And shit like that happens. So it just gets worse and worse when we don't. Yeah, we should acknowledge legitimate concerns. We should try to understand where people are coming from. And even if our goal is to say, look, I think you're too worried about this, we have to start from a place of understanding exactly how they're worried and why. Because otherwise we're not going to persuade them anyway, right? You can say you're too worried about this, but all they're going to hear is you don't understand, right?
Yeah. Or you're stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get it.
You're very stupid.
Yeah, like you don't get it. You don't, so it's just, do we want to actually make headway here, or are we just out for ourselves and making ourselves feel better and superior and stuff? And, for me, it's the former. For me, it's, I want to actually get somewhere. I want to actually fix these problems. And if I think there's no problem, but somebody else thinks there's a huge one, their behavior is going to affect me, right? Because they're going to behave as though there's a huge problem, and I'm going to behave as though there's no problem. What are we going to do with that? We have to engage somehow, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, if people are looking for something positive, I would recommend Dominican Instagram. I don't know, Angel. I don't know if you. I may have shared some of these videos. So my brother Mark, my sister-in-law Nelsie is Dominicana, and he's always sharing with me just just random Dominican reels on Instagram, and some of the funniest ones are, it's just this dude who has his friends read the names of bands, the names of sports teams, and they have thick Dominican accent, and it's so fucking funny. Like it's just, it's impossible not to watch this and at least smile, because it's great, and it's a great thing too because everybody's in on the joke. Like it's just it's like that's how we speak. That's
no, it's great. Speak. Oh yeah, I'm Dominican. Dominicans are hilarious, dude. The funniest one I can think of at the moment is this one of a guy calling into a radio show. He wants to request a song. You've probably heard of this one, but the guy's like, it's like, I don't know the name of the song, but it goes like, is it a Reebok or is it a Nike? Right. And so he's saying, ¿Eso es un Reebok o es un Nike? So he's saying that the song is about, is it a Reebok or a Nike sneaker? So he's mispronouncing Nike already, but like, that's what he thinks the lyrics of the song. And then the guy is like, hold on a second. Are you talking about this? And he plays a clip, and it's, this is the rhythm of the night. And he's like, yeah, that's the one. I'm like, oh my God.
It's a Reebok or the Nike.
Yeah. It's a Reebok or the Nike. Like, dude, I don't know. Yeah. I'm very fortunate in that that's just my family. Like I've just got uncles and aunts, and it's just an endless stream of insanity. Yeah. Dominicans are hilarious, dude. So yeah, I fully agree and back your suggestion. Dominican Instagram and Dominican TikTok is unbelievable. So
yeah, it's fabulous. And
There's no
I had a
shortage
question.
of joy.
Yeah, are you still making hot sauce?
I am. Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't made it in a while because nah, man, nothing makes you more libertarian than trying to start a small business. Because
Ooh,
I thought
yeah. Oh man.
oh, this will be cool. I'll kind of have a little side hustle. Maybe I can go to farmers markets or things like that. But
Right, right.
in the state of New York, there's all these hoops and it costs all this money. And I would have to go to a commercial kitchen to make the sauce. I can't make it at home. There's no way to get your kitchen clean enough or good enough to pass any kind of licensing. You have to go to a commercial kitchen. And I checked. I was like, all right, maybe I can do it at my mom's house in Jersey.
Yeah,
I'll just do it from there. And I looked up very quickly in Jersey, and it's even worse.
It's even
They're
worse.
just like, yeah, like they're like, you can't do any of this.
Yeah.
So yeah, sauces are in a separate category. Like if I baked cookies or something like that, I could do that. But sauces are in another category, and you have to get all this stuff done. And it would be another full-time job, which I already have 2 of those. I don't need any more.
So, yeah, the one you gave me a bottle. It was great. It was mango. I think it was like mango habanero.
Mango's
and it was
fun.
Is that what it was? Yeah, and it was cool because I had never thought, oh, mango with as a hot sauce, and that lasted me about like a few days. I ended up just downing that.
Yeah, I had a friend who literally chugged it from the bottle. I'm like, dude,
like, you all right, man? You doing okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. No. I hate hearing about that, about those kinds of regulations getting in the way of somebody starting something that is not like, I have an experience of your product and I enjoyed your product, and it's something where I would order that off of online and get it shipped to me and all that, and just thinking about just like how many other people who have like potential to turn something, a side business, into like a full-time gig and all that are just being denied because the cost to enter is so high.
Yeah, it sucks. I get it. I understand why those things are there. You don't want people to get sick, et cetera, but it's just a bummer because I was gearing up to do it, man. I got a URL and I was like, oh, this will be really fun.
Right.
And I can make them in small batches, and then just when they sell out, and you got to wait. It'll be a boutique kind of thing. And I just wanted it to be fun, but what I would have to do to get to that point, it won't be fun for me anyway. Like I don't have the bandwidth to start a whole other venture and invest a ton of money into it to start and all that kind of stuff. So I'll keep making it because it's fun and I like it, and I'll keep just giving it away to people like you, in person. So because it's fun and I like it.
I have my older brother makes the best chimichurri. Like, and I don't even say that with, it's not hyperbole. Like, it's the best chimichurri I've ever had. And my wife like wants to drink this shit. Like, she's like, which is a terrible idea because it's all garlic and stuff like that. She ends up, smelling like an old Sicilian man. I imagine that's what old Sicilian men smell like, garlic. But yeah, maybe one day, I can steal the formula and just find a way to, do this on the low or something like that. But Angel, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's just fun. Yeah. And I'll make sure you get a bottle next time I see you.
I appreciate that. Angel, Eduardo, thank you so much, man. It's been great talking to you, and it's been great knowing you for all these years and being able to read your work. And I love the stuff that you're putting out there. More than anything, you're a nice go-to when it's like, okay, I need to recalibrate how I'm handling online discourse or discourse in general. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, man. It's been great talking to you. Great knowing you as well. And shout out to your work with Fire, by the way. 2 of the best videos that Fire's got. Kneeling during the football game. That one, if you guys haven't watched these, there's one about kneeling during the football game. That's fantastic. You'll find it on Fire's YouTube, and also Library Cops, which actually features Lou as one of the titular characters.
Thanks, man. I'll share them when I post for sure.
Yeah, definitely do. Dude, absolutely hilarious. I play them all the time. I always laugh out loud. They're so good. So yeah, kudos, man. And let's do more of those for sure.
Oh, I'd love to.